Now, 2024 has brought us some interesting court cases. Let's talk about a few of them. First one, without a doubt, is the YSL trial. That case had so much going on. Attorneys being put in jail, judges being recused, judges coming in the midst of other judges recusing themselves, and the behavior of the state alone. A lot happened. If you missed anything in the YSL trial, I understand why, because there was a lot going on. That trial had something going on every single day, and as the longest trial in Georgia history, it didn't disappoint. And we actually ended up with the verdict that was expected. We did have some plea deals that took place, and we had some not guilties. Yes, unfortunately, we still have one person who's still locked up, and he's the person who got the not guilty verdict on all charges, but they're going to have their day. And because of the large number of people involved with the YSL trial, we got to see some really amazing attorneys at work, and we just got to see some teamwork among defense attorneys that you don't always get to see, especially for a person who watches court cases all the time. You don't get to normally see the defendant attorneys working together so closely, kind of quite like a family. Like, they stepped in to help each other out on the daily. Based on the circumstances that was going on, it was kind of a requirement, but they worked well together and they complemented each other, and it was amazing to watch them work in action. Now, the Melody Ferris case out of Georgia was one that kind of a lot of people didn't know much about. It kind of got swept under the rug and not too much on the radar because so many other cases were going on at the time that case was going on. But I had my eyes on that case because it just, in my brain, something didn't make sense about that case to me. Melody Ferris was accused of unaliving her husband, and this man weighed 300 plus pounds, and this woman was like 5'2", and they were stating that she drug him up some stairs, out to a field, and put his body on a burn pile. And I was like, what? They found her guilty. I think that the state did not prove their case, but she was found guilty of the crime. Now, the Karen Reed case, I started watching it super late in the game, but I am so ready for the retrial for this case because just like the YSL trial, it had a lot going on. It absolutely had a lot going on, especially when you bring in the FBI, misconduct of evidence, mishandling of investigating. It was quite an eventful trial, and that retrial, I think, is going to top the original trial. Now, the Quentin Nixon trial out of Ohio was a trial that I had no intention, and when I say no intention, I mean no intention of watching. I am not a fan of pro se defendants because, as they say, someone defending themselves is a fool. I was under the assumption that because that is my personal opinion, that it was going to be a hot mess. And I don't even know how I started watching that trial. Because I just am a person that watches trial all the time, I think the TV was just on and I did not get up to turn it off because I was in the midst of doing something, and I started hearing the trial and I was like, is that the defendant? And I was blown away. Unfortunately, he did get that guilty verdict, but he was very impressive as a pro se defendant. He sounded like he had it together. He asked really good questions, and he didn't go on tangents like a lot of other pro se defendants have in the past, and that kind of helped people be like, he's actually doing pretty good. And it was kind of one of those cases that you kind of had a side eye because you were kind of embarrassed that you were like, he's done a pretty good job. But he did a phenomenal job as a pro se defendant. If he would have went with a jury trial, he may have gotten a different verdict, but he did pro se and a bench trial, which is definitely a weird combo. That's definitely not seen often, pro se and a bench trial, but that was the route that he chose, which is definitely his right. But a lot of people think that if he would have went with the jury trial, he may have gotten a different verdict. Now, the Deborah Redding case out of Vegas was a case that I was so excited to get ready to watch, and when it started, they started the trial, they had a couple of witnesses take the stand, and then he decided to go ahead and accept the plea, and I was surprised. Now, if you don't remember this is the case of the video that went viral of him jumping across the bench to attack the judge when she was about to give him a sentence of jail time, and he thought he was going to be able to go back and get probation and additional time and things like that. He was thrown off and he completely jumped over that bench and attacked that woman. And his charges included attempted unaliving of her, and that definitely weighed in on his decision to just go ahead and take the plea deal. Now, the Alec Baldwin case is a case that I personally feel like should have never went to trial in the first place. I just personally never thought that it was his fault, the situation that happened. I do understand that a lot of people did think that he had some responsibility in it, but me personally, I just didn't think that he did. And he ended up with the kind of scenario that was the best, which I thought was the best as well. He had a mistrial from the judge based on the fact that the attorney did a lot of misconduct in the case, and she felt that it was unacceptable and there was no way to rectify the situation besides providing a mistrial to him. And I think that was the right decision, so I'm glad he is home with his family on a case that I feel like should have never went to trial. Justin Johnson case out of Tennessee, the Young Dolph unaliving case, was one of the cases where he should have just took a plea deal and kept it pushing, because that gentleman was on camera everywhere. The day before, the day of, multiple outfit changes, multiple locations. I'm not even sure why he thought he was going to get a not guilty verdict. I'm absolutely clueless, but the jury got it right on that one. Now, the Christopher Gregory case is a case of the treadmill situation where he had his son on a treadmill and his son kept falling off that treadmill and he kept making him get back on it. That was a case that was so heartbreaking, because your parents are people that you are supposed to be able to feel safe and trusted with. For someone to so carelessly cause the ending of your life, for it to be a parent, is such a heartbreaking situation. He was found guilty on those charges, and I am so sorry. Son Corey did not deserve to go out the way that he did, and it still is a case that saddens me when such a young person is gone for reasons that were unnecessary. The Ali Abulabon case out of California was a hot mess. He's a TikToker who actually ended up unaliving his wife. They kind of had a lot of jealousy, back and forth things going on, but he was yelling at attorneys, he was yelling at family members, he was having all kind of outbursts in court. People were on the stand and he would start laughing at them. It was quite uneasy to watch, and for the judge not to kick him out of the courtroom based on the way he was acting, I was quite surprised about, but he did get that guilty verdict and he's serving life. Now, the Richard Allen case is a case that I really didn't keep up with, especially because they were not going to allow cameras in the courtroom, and it was just a lot of details that were being hidden and kept private, and I like to kind of know what's going on before I kind of decide to get involved in watching the case. And there was so much information that was limited that I just kind of was like, I don't really know. So apparently because of that, I missed a lot. A lot of people do not think that he actually did this crime. And that was baffling to me, because I had no clue that so many people thought. He was found guilty, but my understanding is that there will be an appeal, and a lot of people are putting in support and donations toward that appeal process because they do not believe he got a fair trial, because they don't believe he actually did it. Now, the Robert Tillis trial out of Vegas was one of those trials that either you heard about it or you didn't. It was kind of a hit or miss kind of trial. I was quite interested to hear about this trial because of the outfit, honey. That outfit just, I was like, he did not go and take this man's life in this hideous outfit. And he did. I think that's why I started watching this case. But the main thing that I want to talk about this case is that because he was an attorney, the judge allowed him to get on the stand and do this testimony narrative. And he was on the stand for hours. I think he should go down in history as the person who took the most time unnecessarily and was allowed to do it because he was an attorney. He did get that guilty verdict. I do believe the jury got it right on that one. Now, the James and Jennifer Crumbley trial was definitely one that was on a lot of people's radar. I personally stayed away from this trial because court cases with kids and a bunch of kids usually just makes me kind of so uncomfortable. Lives being taken at such a young age with so much potential is just something that touches on my heartstrings, and it's a lot. But this was a monumental case. This is the first time that parents have been charged with the crimes that the children have done in these situations with these schools. It has set such a precedent on holding parents accountable for their kids' acts. I think that the parents whose children are no longer here found some type of peace in them being charged and found guilty. And I don't think the appeal process will go in their favor. So they are going to be serving time for their association with their son's decisions. So 2024 trials have been one for the record. Let me know what your favorite trial of 2024 was. Go ahead and let me know in the comments what your favorite trial of 2024 was.